you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Thanks for joining Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. Today, we are going to be looking at a very important topic, the importance of corporate governance evaluation. And to do justice to this topic is a very distinguished fellow of ICSAN, a council member, honorary treasurer, and the chairman of the Governance Practitioners Committee of ICSAN, Mr. Francis OLAWALE. Mr. OLAWALE is a trained accountant as well as a governance, compliance, and business development practitioner. He is a member of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria as well as that of the United Kingdom. He currently serves as the honorary treasurer of ICSAN and is a member of the Institute of Arbitrators, United Kingdom, as well as Nigeria. He is also a member of the Institute of Directors, Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment, United Kingdom, Institute of Stockbrokers of Nigeria, and the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria. He is a member of the Society for Corporate Governance of Nigeria, an International Labour Organization trainer. He is an ISO 9001-2015 certified lead auditor and consultant. He is also an International Finance Corporation trained and certified corporate governance practitioner and board evaluator. He is an authorized dealing clerk of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Mr. OLAWALE currently serves on the board of Knights and Recovery Limited, Christian and Casting Limited, and F&G Realities Limited, DCMS Limited, amongst others. He is the founding partner of Frank's Management Consulting International, a management consulting firm involved in financial advisory, process engineering, business development, strategy formulation, and implementation training services. Mr. Francis OLAWALE, it's great to have you on Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Good to see you again and good to be back here. Good afternoon, listeners and viewers.
Okay, we want to discuss something very important in corporate governance, and that is the importance of corporate governance evaluation. You know, there is board evaluation, then there is corporate governance evaluation. Now, I'd like to start this conversation by asking what really is corporate governance evaluation and what's the difference between corporate governance evaluation and board evaluation?
Okay, thank you very much. If we were supposed to just put it simply, simplicity, I would say corporate governance evaluation basically, is the assessment and examination of the corporate governance framework in an entity. But to make it easily understandable, we should put perspective to it. So let's talk about what corporate governance is in a very simple and understandable way, and
Okay.
then talk about what corporate governance framework is.
Okay.
Okay, so corporate governance, for the purpose of this discussion, I would say basically it is just the way you direct the affairs of an organization, you know, to get results. You know, because the objectives, the corporate objectives of the entity, either business entity or a non-for-profit entity, is the result, you know, you really are trying to achieve. You know, so corporate governance just refers, you know, to how you direct, you know, the affairs to achieve that purpose. Okay, so that's corporate governance. Now, corporate governance framework within an entity will refer to the establishment, you know, of processes, of procedures, methodologies, policies, and practices, you know, that will be applied to achieve, you know, the corporate governance purpose. You know, so corporate governance framework. So corporate governance evaluation basically is you assessing, you know, that framework to ascertain the effectiveness, to ascertain the adequacy of the framework to deliver strategic imperatives, you know, for the company, and then the ability of the governing organ applying this framework, right, to deliver value to various stakeholders of an entity, basically. So that's on one side. And then you also talked about board evaluation.
Okay.
Similar to it, as a matter of fact, board evaluation is supposed to be, you know, an integral part of a corporate governance framework. You know, is a corporate governance requirement, you know, but very close to it. So board evaluation basically refers to, in the same, you know, light, evaluation of the directors, you know, in various dimensions now. Of course, the board in its entirety, individual directors broken down into executives and non-executives, the chairman, the various role players, you know, within the board, you know, assessing, you know, their performance, assessing their contribution in delivering, you know, the strategic imperatives to various stakeholders of the company.
Very instructive and comprehensive. You talked about the framework, you talked about the corporate governance itself, and you went on to discuss about the board. At this point, I would like to invite our viewers to be part of the program by asking questions or making comments on the program. You can send your question or comments via text message to 080-2323-1287. Please, no phone calls, only text message to 080-2323-1287. So, Mr. Olawale, let's get back to the conversation. What are the key areas and policies of the organization that are being considered in conducting corporate governance evaluation?
That's a very big one. That's a wide one, and then it's never cast in stone.
Okay.
There is the value addition dimension to that. You know, there is the compliance and regulatory requirements, you know, dimension to that. You know, so and then there's the sustainability dimension to it.
as well.
You know, all of these are my own analysis anyway.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're talking about the policies that you will, you know, adopt, governance policies exist in their myriads, in their numbers. Now there are different frameworks that have been established by different critical regulators and stakeholders. You know, so it really will never be cast in stone. But the important thing, before I go into some and give examples, the important thing, you know, to guide you will be what are the critical areas, studying an entity, what are the critical areas, you know, that aid the sustainability of that entity? What are the critical areas, the critical policies that will aid that particular organization to be in a position, you know, to deliver value to stakeholders? So having said that, that's the guiding principle, because the policies are inexhaustible, you know, and that's why I laid the foundation by saying, let that be the guiding thought. Now, having said that, I'll kick off, for example, with the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance. The Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance has about, you know, 6 parts, and then has about, you know, has 28 principles. Yeah. And then the FRC also has a template, you know, which guides you, you know, to check the various recommended practices, to tick, you know, the various, you know, recommended practices if they exist, you know, within that entity. The International Finance Corporation has some of its own criteria, which has things to do with sustainability and environmental, interactions and all of that. Even the Nigerian Exchange Group, by the way, you said Nigerian Stock Exchange when you were introducing me, is Nigerian Exchange Group now, just for that clarification. Also has, its own corporate governance rating, system. So you can see all of these various regulatory checklist. But beyond that is the issue of value. When I was defining, I talked about the adequacy of those processes, the procedures, the practices, being adopted, their adequacy and their effectiveness to deliver value, to various stakeholders. So you could go the dimension of ticking the box of all of those. And you see, one thing about evaluation, both board evaluation and corporate governance evaluation, it's never cast in stone. In the first place, before you can even attempt, or before you could even delve into wanting to evaluate, you need to have a firm grip of the concept of governance yourself. You need to be a master of the game, or you need to know in depth about governance dynamics. Why am I saying so? Because evaluating, delivering value in the evaluation goes a bit beyond just ticking boxes. And I'll give you an example, why I say so. In recent times, IT governance is a necessity. Because we live in an information technology age, and then there are dynamics, to it. There are evolvement, there are development, around it. But if you check all of these checklists that I just said to you now, you hardly, will find that. Apart, from the responsibilities of the board, that the NCCG code, has included IT governance. But you won't see that, in the evaluation template. But that's a very critical area to the survival of an organization, in current days. So you will need, to identify that, right, and conduct evaluation and assessments around that. I'll give you another example. The issue of data integrity, has always been necessary over the years. But in recent times, there have been regulations around it. You have Data Protection Act in Nigeria now. Now, if you check each of those templates, again, you probably will not find a thing like that. But these are critical issues that affect governance, that affect, the ability of the governing organ to deliver value to stakeholders. So beyond all of those checklists, at the discretion, at the professional judgment of the assessor, you will capture every critical areas in terms of policies, practices, that will aid sustainability and help the governing organ to deliver value.
Okay, corporate governance evaluation in itself is very comprehensive, according to what you have laid down. And you actually said that there are some critical factors that you have to provide checklist for. Are there stages in corporate governance evaluation process? If there are stages, can you mention some of those stages and the items that should be in each of those stages?
Okay, so that, yes, there are stages. The idea of corporate governance and board evaluation, I'll keep, talking about it side by side. It's supposed to take a rational, methodical approach.
Okay.
And then, having established, that there are stages, even though not cast in stone. Once again, a lot, depends on the depth of the assessor. It's an evolving practice. There are various climes that have been in this practice for a very long time, but in our climb, it's evolving and it's very dynamic. So having said that, in my opinion, and then from my experience, on the field, the very first thing, the moment you have an evaluation brief with an entity, will be to familiarize yourself, right, with the business dynamics of that entity, with the dynamics of their sectorial space, with the dynamics of their regulatory space. They have regulators, with the dynamics of the industry space. That's the starting point. Because you really cannot deliver value. Exactly. You cannot deliver value. You cannot assess them properly if you don't understand in-depthly. And that takes a bit of time, You know, so haven't done that. Of course, I take it, you know, that the pre-engagements, you know, normal business processes and documentations
would have taken place.
Care of. Okay. I mean, letter of engagements, you know, agreement of scope, agreement of fees. So I take that, you know, for granted. So having done that, you know, you understand the dynamics. After understanding the dynamics, you agree a scope, right, with the people you are evaluating. Scope is very wide. Like I said, you communicate, you know, a scope with them. Then you decide as the assessor what methodologies you're going to use, what methodologies you're going to adopt. And then to just quickly add that, in your question, you said, what are some of the processes? There are various methodologies. You know, you will have, you know, the document review. You could use questionnaires and surveys. You could do interviews, interactions, and interface, you know, with you know, various stakeholders. You could do interview. You could do group discussions. You know, so, and then the list goes on like that. So you determine what methodologies. And then, mind you, why I said that it's a bit beyond checklist is the fact that companies, you know, exist in their scales. You know, companies exist differently in their cycles. A company that has just been set up, you know, right, that has just kicked off, may want evaluation just to meet regulatory requirements. So they might not have a very established or robust, you know, framework. And then you have some companies that are at the growing stage. You have some companies that are, you know, maturity stage. You have companies that are saturation, you know, stage. So this key factor determines the robustness of the framework, and that informs the methodology that you're going to adopt. You know, so after deciding, you know, your methodology, of course, you kick off, and then you do engagement of various stakeholders. You know, you interface, you know, with various stakeholders. Of course, there will be document review, you know, like I said, and then after the exercise, I left something out. You know, evaluation, you have a meeting. Okay, I said that, you know, to agree the scopes, methodologies,
it's part of the briefing,
and all of that is part of the briefing. So after you've concluded all of that, you've done your evaluation, you've looked at the various policies, you know, you've interacted with different people, you know, you write a preliminary report, you know, which you discuss with the governance team. Of course, the governance team typically headed, you know, by a company secretary. Okay. By the way, the name is the nomenclature is gradually metamorphosing, you know, into governance consultants. Okay. You know, so the company secretary will be the lead team of the governance, you know, team supporting the board. You know, so you have a preliminary discussion, you know, with them. They look at it, and then you draw up, you know, your reports, and then the report is supposed to be shared with the board via the chairman, and then there will also be a presentation, you know, perhaps maybe with the board or whichever we agree.
Wonderful. You are almost turning me to an evaluator or an assessor, if I have to use your words. That was comprehensive. You mentioned some stakeholders where you were giving answers to that question. Now, who are the internal or the external stakeholders that are involved in obtaining inputs from in the process of doing this, corporate governance evaluation?
Okay, so thank you very much. Again, I would like to put this dimension from experience from the field. You know that in conducting corporate governance evaluation, there are different objectives for the evaluation. Okay. You know, the most basic of them will be to meet regulatory requirements. You know, the Financial Reporting Council expects,
basic. Okay.
That's the most basic. You know, the Financial Reporting Council expects you know, companies to file reports of the corporate governance audits. They have a template, you know, to file. And then another purpose for the evaluation may be for due diligence. And I'm talking from experience. And there have been instances, you know, where some random companies, you know, reach out to us, you know, from overseas. They want to come and invest. And they're doing due diligence on a particular company. And part of the due diligence is for them, you know, to gain some reassurance or some assurance as to the state of the corporate governance framework. Because it's very key. The state of the corporate governance framework is key to sustainability of the entity. So that's another, you know, purpose. And then sometimes companies just want to assess beyond regulatory requirements, beyond investors reaching out to you to conduct independent and reach out to them. So companies just want to assess themselves. How are we faring? Haven't established, all of those purposes. That would determine who the internal or the external, stakeholders will be. For the normal regulatory basic evaluation, you will not be interfacing, for example, with the regulators. But for a purpose whereby an international company reaches out to you for due diligence, the regulators become stakeholders that you interact with. But for the normal basic one, the stakeholders you interact with, will be directors, and then key among them will be chairman. The chairman lends credibility to you, in the first place, because you don't just show up and then start getting into very sensitive details, of people. So you interact very essentially, primarily, with the chairman. It's the chairman that lends credibility to you, introduces you, right, to the board, and then assuages everybody to say, cooperate with these guys. Of course, you interact, a lot with the governance team within that entity, like I said earlier, and then the chief stakeholder among the governance team is expected to be the company secretary. Company secretary usually has support staff, within that unit. So you interact, with them. Then you interact with the executives, at executive level. Then you interact with staff of some critical units, that are very important, to governance. For example, compliance. Unit. For example, finance, extremely, key. And then in some instances, depending on the agreed scope, you could reach out to one or two other external stakeholders, such as shareholders and other external stakeholders. You could reach out to them. So depending on the scope.
Okay, Mr. Olawale, you've almost taken all my time, but within the short time that is remaining, we have established the fact that corporate governance evaluation is good.
Yes.
However, there are some challenges that could be militating against effective corporate governance evaluation. What are these challenges and how can they be addressed?
The first one, the key one, first one that I'd like to mention would be the issue of trust. Like I said earlier, you are interacting with stakeholders, isn't it? And then they're going to give you access. Governance documents are extremely strategic and sensitive documents. As an assessor, to properly assess, the governance framework of that entity, you need access to them. So the issue of trust, should we trust this guy? And that was why I said that, you will need to get the buy-in of the chairman. And then the chairman lends credibility to you. So aside that, there are other ways, of winning the confidence. You could sign NDAs, non-disclosure, agreements, or any other thing that will give them assurance. So that's how to solve it. But the issue of trust, who is this person looking into our minutes, right? Who is this person looking into our, strategic blueprints? Who is this person, right, interacting with directors and then asking very personal questions, sensitive questions with respect to board dealings. So the issue of trust, number one. Another one will be the issue of expertise. I said to you that beyond the real value, the real value in board evaluation, in corporate governance evaluation, is the understanding of the purpose of it, right, and understanding of the dynamics of governance by the person doing the evaluation. So the issue of best of judgment comes in a lot. So best of judgment, if the person who is evaluating is half-baked or has not emerged fully as an expert, then there's an issue. And then you're going to be grading the companies, right? And your grading will be trusted, by stakeholders, external stakeholders. So that's an issue. Then the issue of cost, the issue of cost, comes in. To get, good hands is not exactly very cheap, right? It has become a regulatory imperative now. So the issue of getting people, who will deliver value, as I've just, outlined here. The tendency to just go for, cheap funds could be there for companies so that they just present and say we have conducted it, but no value, intrinsic value, deliver. Because of your time, I can see your face, so I'll stop at that. That's what happens.
Thank you very much.
That's what happens when you choose, to discuss corporate governance evaluation in 30 minutes.
Anyway, I may have to bring you back on this show to discuss this very important topic. This is a wrap on the program because of our time. Thank you very much, Mr. Francis Olawale.
Thank you.
distinguished fellow, ICSAN, council member, treasurer, and of course, chairman of the Governance Practitioners Committee. Yes. Thank you for being part of the show. We invite you to join us again next week. Same station, same time. I remain Tunde Odeyemi. My producer is Adigboye Galabiran, and the technical director is Abiba Dejobi. Keep spreading the gospel of corporate governance. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Strategies
at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.